For what values of lambda, the following three lines whose equations are given to us, these three lines are concurrent. Okay. Now, in order for three lines to be concurrent, so what we can do, we can form a determinant. The determinant can be formed by considering the coefficient of each of the terms. So that means, let's say we have a 3 by 3 determinant. In the first row, in row number 1, so we are going to consider the first equation, 2x minus 5y plus 3 equals to 0. So here we take the coefficient of x. So that's going to be present in the first row, first column. Then we come to the first row, second column. So here we're going to consider the coefficient of y, that's negative 5. And then in the first row, third column, we're going to consider the constant coefficient term, so that's 3. Now coming to the next equation of the line, we have 5x minus 9y plus lambda equals to 0. So here what we'll do, we're going to consider row number 2. Now in row number 2, column number 1, we're going to place the coefficient of x, that's 5. Then in row number 2, column number 2, we're going to place coefficient of y, so that's going to be negative 9. And then finally in row number 2, column number 3, we place lambda. Then coming to the third equation, x minus 2y plus 1 equals to 0. So here we have R3, row number 3. So in row number 3, coefficient of x, that's 1. Then we have coefficient of y, that's negative 2. And then we have the constant term, that's positive 1. Okay. So let's expand this along the first row. So what we'll do, we're going to consider the term that is present in the first row, first column, which is 2. Then this is going to get multiplied to a 2 by 2 determinant, which can be formed by rejecting the entire row R1 and the entire row C1, because that contains the number 2. So we are left with negative 9, positive lambda, negative 2, and positive 1. Then we go to the next element. So that is going to be negative of, we're going to consider the element that's present in the first row, second column, which is negative 5. Multiplied to it will be the determinant 5, lambda, 1, and 1. So here what we have done, we have considered the 2 by 2 determinant by rejecting the row R1 and the column C2, because that contains negative 5. And then finally coming to the element in the first row, third column, which is 3. 3 gets multiplied to the 2 by 2 determinant, 5, negative 9, 1, and negative 2. That is also obtained by rejecting the entire row and the entire column containing 3. So we have rejected here R1 and C3. Now let's expand it. We have to multiply 2. So negative 9 multiplied to 1 makes it negative 9. Minus the negative 2 times lambda is negative 2 lambda, since we already have a negative sign here. So that makes it positive 2 lambda. Negative times negative 5, that makes it positive 5. So we have positive 5 multiplied to, so 5 times 1, that's 5. Minus 1 times lambda, that's lambda. Added to 3 multiplied to, so 5 times negative 2, so that's negative 10, minus 1 multiplied to negative 9, so that's negative 9. So we already have a negative sign, so that makes it positive 9. So let's further expand. So 2 times negative 9, that's negative 18, added to 2 times 2 lambda, that's 4 lambda, plus 5 times 5 minus lambda makes it 25 minus 5 lambda. Then we have negative 10 plus 9, so that's negative 1. So negative 1 added to, multiplied to positive 3 makes it negative 3. So we have 4 lambda and negative 5 lambda, so that makes it negative lambda. Then we have 25 minus 18 minus 3, so that is simply going to be positive 4. Positive 4. So we have obtained that the determinant comes out to be negative lambda plus 4. But it's already given the 3 lines are concurrent. Now, if the 3 lines are concurrent, then the condition for concurrency demands that the determinant must be equals to 0. So this implies that the determinant value which we obtain is negative lambda plus 4. So this must be equals to 0. Now when we solve for lambda, so lambda comes out to be positive 4. So we have successfully obtained the value of lambda, which is 4, for which these 3 lines are going to be concurrent.